Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Synergy virtual showcase brought to you by Spanning. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for today's discussion, which is on the new, the old, and the mighty cyber threats to look out for in 2024. My name is Jade Gamlin. I'll be your host today, and I'm very much looking forward to spending this next 90 minutes with you all. We have got some of the brightest minds from the industry here today, and I can't wait to hear from you all, create a space for you to share your journeys and to learn from one another's experiences. So with that in mind, please can I encourage you to get involved, ask questions, and even come up on this virtual stage with me. Just a couple of useful things to know before we get started. This is a closed door session, so nothing shared today will be released into the public domain. Today's showcase will contain a keynote and a panel discussion, both of which will have open audience Q&A sessions. So please do chime in with your questions whenever the moment strikes you. We've got our wonderful technician, Adam, on hand, who will be here to field your questions. And all you need to do to get one into us is drop them in the chat, or you can DM Adam directly. We'll bring you up when the time is right. Also, you can use the chat just to engage with one another during the show, and I highly encourage you to do so. After all, today is all about you and your perspectives, and we'd love to hear from you all. After the session today, our team at Synergy will be following up with you and getting your feedback on your experience today and any connections you'd like to make. And we'll also provide you with the recording and any information from the discussion that you would like. So what are we here to discuss? Well, to say the adoption of AI among businesses is a growing trend would be a gross understatement. From the media hype to its very real use cases, dare I mention ChatGPT, its high propensity for task automation, cost reduction, unlocking of new opportunities, and exceptional process execution improvement potential is undeniable. We know global AI adoption is set to expand at a compound annual growth rate of 38.1% between 2022 and 2030. But how does all of this impact the data security of your companies? Can a robust backup and recovery solution effectively maintain business continuity? And perhaps most importantly, can we do all of this while simultaneously combating the cyber threats posed by AI? Well, this showcase aims to find out, and we'll be discussing the implications of and advancements in AI. We'll discuss whether AI is the biggest innovation or the biggest threat. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. We'll explore AI and the evolution of social engineering threats to companies today, and we'll uncover the real AI threats facing your organization's data. And of course, we'll hear from all of you, those that are building a bridge into the future with AI at its very core. So let's hear from some people who've been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. Highly experienced in everything AI. Please welcome Spanning's Fred Notel, Senior Specialist, and Kelly Croning, their Product Marketing Specialist for Cloud Backup. Welcome to you both, Fred and Kelly. How are you?
Very good. You want to
go first?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Jade. Very good.
Good.
Awesome. I'm doing well also. Good to see you, Jade.
Good to see you and glad to hear it. Let's start by hearing a little bit about you both and your career backgrounds. Kelly, can we start with you?
Yes. I have been with Kaseya working with Spanning Backup for about 2 years now. When I joined Kaseya, I initially started in a sales role, quickly transitioned to a more technical role, similar to what Fred is doing today, and then kind of went back to the other side of the house in the product marketing space. Before I joined Kaseya, I was doing consulting for an HR consulting firm working with software with psychological assessments. So always been kind of in the software side of the business. Fred, did you want to share a little bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in the role with Spanning and Kaseya for a little bit less than Kelly, around 1.5 years now. So, but I am a senior solution specialist, so I am in a direct sales role here with all of our partners, of course, for the SaaS backup side of things. So Previously, I was in the financial services industry. I also was in sales in the medical device industry. So, no pun intended, but span a few industries there. But yeah, it's great to be here and great to have the privilege to talk to everybody today.
Thank you, and thank you for making today possible. Incredible that you've both got such a wealth of experience in the tech that you're able to bring to light today on the stage. With that in mind, our two experts here, Kelly and Fred, will be taking your questions right after their keynote. So if anything strikes you, do get those into us once again, just using that chat function. For now, though, Kelly and Fred, over to you both.
Great, thank you so much. Can everyone see my screen of the presentation? Fred, can you see it, or are you seeing my Teams chat?
Okay. I am seeing I'm seeing a Zoom events webpage right now.
Okay, that is not what I'm wanting to share.
That wasn't quite it.
Let me try that again. All right. How about now?
You got it. Perfect.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for everyone joining today. Again, my name is Kelly Croning, and I'm joined with Fred Notel, our Senior Solutions Specialist for Spanning Backup. I did want to start out our conversation today with a bit of a poll. I would love to see just how big, does anyone want to take a guess as to how big cybercrime is today in comparison with economy size? The US is at 26.9 trillion, China is at 17.8. Any guesses in the chat? I would love to see our participants taking just a stab at what we think that is. I see 2% in the chat, 100 billion by Rick Scott. Good guesses out there. But actually, it is at $8 trillion for the year 2023, which is the third largest economy in the world today. And that's more so out of every other country outside of the US and China. Greater than number 3, Germany, and number 4, Japan. And that's predicted to reach 10.5 trillion by 2025. Kind of a staggering number, huh, Fred?
That is a staggering number, Kelly. It absolutely is. It's pretty incredible, especially in comparison to those economies. It's unreal.
It is. Yeah, it is. And today we are talking about those cyber threats to look out for in 2024. But today there is a massive opportunity for threat actors. In 2021, we reached a tipping point where cyber attacks hit more small to medium-sized businesses than large-scale companies. So the question is not if, but when. So this year, 73% of organizations worldwide have been affected by a ransomware attack, which is a 17% increase in the last 3 years and a 32% increase over the last 5. So these are on the rise. And you may be wondering who's been affected the most by these attacks. In Q1 of 2023, the manufacturing sector was experiencing the most frequent ransomware incidents, just under 17% you see there on your screen, with 45% of those attacks occurring within the United States. The second most frequent industry was professional services, and then following was construction and healthcare. And we also conducted a survey on preparedness for these types of attacks. And despite the rising risk, not many people are of concern for their SaaS environments, even though 90% of attacks begin with phishing. And Fred, you had a couple of thoughts you wanted to share about phishing. Did you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to just click through there, I'll pick up on that. Yeah.
Sure.
So of course, as Kelly mentioned, right, usually the first line of attack is going to be a phishing attempt of some form, right? Now, of course, there's smishing. There's a bunch of different forms of phishing, but just, for today's purposes, we'll focus on the email type, right? In this case, and as time has gone on, right, all of these attacks have become little bit more interactive, a little bit more legitimate looking, right? In this case, obviously, we're looking at an impersonated Zoom email, right? It's got the logo, it's got the typical verbiage. Now, of course, there are going to be some emotional triggers in there, right, to get somebody to think less and react more to, what obviously they're receiving here. Late payments, account suspension, all that kind of stuff, right, is what you'll see typically, and again, in various forms. Obviously, this time of the year is one of the times of the year that we see a lot of those kinds of attacks being rolled out and things like that. Holiday time, people are spending money, people are getting these advertising emails and all those kinds of things, right? So that is, again, something that we see increase around this time of year. But to that effect as well, obviously, this is something that's likely user generated. It can also be generated, via AI, and that's a growing concern now as well, right? A lot of security leaders are recognizing and noticing. Obviously, AI has a lot of benefits, right? And there's a lot of great features about it, but there's also some downsides and negatives to it, right? Where artificial intelligence can be used for these purposes and phishing attacks and attempts and ransomware attempts as well. So, Kelly, if you want to hop on to the next slide there, another example of that, right? Situation where there's a link that they need to click within the email. They go to a landing page that is replicating something just like 365 here, of course, as we see, just typical login credential kind of thing. They go in, and obviously once that that login button is hit there, their PII is completely compromised, and they are in a really bad situation now, right? So, of course, once they have that information, just looking at whether you're looking at the younger generations, whether you're looking at the older generations, that will go. And Kelly, if you want to jump to the next one there, we'll also tailor into the fact that, or the idea that a lot of people replicate their passwords, right? So if they go into 365, and especially if we're talking an admin in 365, the likelihood that they are using that same password or those same credentials or something similar to that is in the 65th percentile range, which is considerably high, right? So it just goes to show that once these individuals are in, they can really spread and expand from there quite simply, and that's a lot of human error that goes into that.
Have you been guilty, Fred, of
I have been guilty of that. I've been guilty of that, and it's the typical password that I probably shouldn't be using. So that just goes to show I'm guilty of that as well. But it is clearly very important, and it's just fact, as simple as it is. So
yeah, awesome. So you might be wondering, what are they after? So let's say someone gets into your environment. You've experienced a phishing attack. You'd see here most of the time they are after personal identifying information, whether that is your customer PII or your own employees. 71% of these data breaches are financially motivated by ransom, extortion, stolen creds. For approximately $1,000, criminals can obtain a full range of documents and account details, enabling them to commit identity theft. These forged documents may be your driver's license, your passport, auto insurance cards. They also can be ordered to match stolen data. Oh, and I forgot to add this additional little bit of information at the end there. But hey, Fred, have you ever put your genetic code out on the internet? Have you ever used 23andMe?
I have. Yes.
You have?
I have.
Okay. Have you heard of the recent attack that had happened in October?
I have. Yes, I have heard of that.
Oh boy. Okay.
Significant concern there, of course. Now,
sure.
Can't say I'm the most important individual, that my genetic code is going to be anything super, no pun intended, but it is definitely a concern. Absolutely.
Yeah. So with this 23andMe attack, you see in the title here that they were using credential stuffing. Their hacker Golem went after, you name it, you guessed it, user PII, 4 million users to be exact. And they used a common technique using credential stuffing, which using passwords and usernames that are already public from past data breaches, typically found on the dark web. Credential stuffing has become more efficient, though, with the use of AI and bots to speed up that process. So these hackers are going after your passwords, your creds, and they're speeding up that process. They're using pattern recognition not only to guess your future passwords, but they're also monitoring our behavior online. So these are becoming more and more risky attacks, I guess you could say. So what we want to know is, would you risk it? Is it worth it to you to put your information on the dark web or out on the internet by using those similar passwords over and over again for someone like Gollum, the hacker for 23andMe, to get your info? It's kind of a risk that you have to take. It's a flip of a coin as far as whether or not you can recover. Right, Fred?
Yes, exactly.
Kind of a flip of a coin with your SaaS data out there.
Yep, exactly. So that's just to go off of that, right? To put a little pause on the the AI bots and that bit of the conversation, which of course we'll jump right back into. But when we're talking about those kinds of attacks, right, and we're talking about those losses, when we're looking at the different types of data that we have, right, and where it resides, there are different success rates, right, and there are different processes, obviously, as we all know, and things like that, right? So obviously we're talking SaaS applications today, right? It's a 50-50 chance of recovery.
Yep.
I am not banking on a 50% chance of recovery, right? That is, there's going to be stress, there's going to be excessive amounts of time spent, looking through a process that you really only have a 50% chance of getting the data you need back, right? And that's why obviously, we're here to talk about SaaS backup, SaaS products, and so forth. So
Yep.
that, of course, but tailoring off of, or I guess continuing that conversation with the AI bit of it, right, and the bots. Those losses are going to occur heavily due to these attacks, right? Most of the time, could be accidental errors, things like that, but in most cases, it will be something of this nature. So continuing that AI conversation, right? A lot of these, this is utilized via bots who are, writing emails that are, done based on, behavioral studies and things like that, that obviously this technology can do and performs. And that's how these things are generated, right? It's going to bypass security measures, bypass things like that. Same thing with SEO, right? It's a legitimate technique, just like AI is a legitimate tool. But there are ways to use these techniques and tools for illegitimate purposes, or to push malicious content, to push malicious ads and things like that into the forefront for us everyday individuals to accidentally interact with, accidentally click on, and so forth. So, and that's of course where we'll come into those landing pages that are going to steal our credentials and all those good kinds of things, right? So obviously the concern is warranted, right? Spam filtering is great, but again, this machine learning is able to get around those things in various ways. So that is definitely of great concern.
Yep. A bit scary, I will have to say.
It is incredibly scary.
And you'd think I'm smart enough, I can see when it's a phishing attack. I can see when something's not real, but can you really trust your own eyes? Like, here's an example. Most people wouldn't take a story on social media seriously if they saw it only one post. Maybe some out there would. But if you hadn't seen these a few months ago, there was a fear of a Pentagon attack. And none of this actually happened. Okay, so this was a fake Bloomberg account on Twitter, or now X, I guess you could say, where you can get a blue check mark essentially for a very low cost, if not for free. And people, none of this actually happened. So if you were following these accounts, searching for Bloomberg or news, economics, this came up back in May. And this had real effects on our economy. Gold, bonds, and other assets people were buying during this fake doomsday time spiked. And AI generated these accounts and created these images
to drawing that reaction.
To draw a reaction and create this giant misinformation network that went viral. So this has real life implications. But then what about your eyes and ears? So this is an example. A writer for the New York Times cloned herself using AI, and she was able to conduct an interview with her AI generated voice with the Snap CEO. That was a success. The CEO had no idea they were having a conversation with a bot. Tried to create a TikTok with likeness and ChatGPT, and that did not work out. But her own banking biometrics, she fooled her bank. She used AI. This is scary stuff. I have to say.
Unreal.
She fooled her bank, so was able to use AI to get into her own checking and savings account. And then she tried to do an AI sit-in for a full meeting over Zoom, and that had failed. Not quite there yet. But an example that I like to think about in our own organization at Kaseya, let's say someone from the finance department is relatively new, but they get a phone call from our CEO, Fred Vicola. We hear him on our quarterly town halls. We see him at events. When you hear his voice, you know that voice. So let's say you get a call from the CEO for an invoice or a wire request, and hits that new finance person, and asks, let's say his name is John. Hi, John, it's Fred Vicola. I need you to pay this invoice from this vendor. It's going to be coming in about 5 minutes into your inbox. Just so you're aware, and can you please action that request? So in comparison to traditional phishing attacks, how successful do you think vishing or voicemail along with a phishing email campaign was? 10%, 25% or more successful? I'd love to see in the chat if you had any guesses about how much more successful a phishing attack is. Fred, do you have any guesses?
I mean, I would think at least 20 to 25% more successful. I mean, hearing a voice that is who you think it is, it's got to be more effective. This has to be.
So compared to the traditional phishing attacks increased success by nearly 300%.
Yeah.
Click-through rates were 300% more effective using voice and email together. Just bonkers.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
So what can we do? We have to protect our users, our data, and our organizations. Fred, you had some insight on that, right?
I do, correct. I do have a little insight on that. And that is largely knowing our users, right? Knowing, the individuals within our organizations and making sure that, we're providing them the measures or the know-how to protect themselves, right? Because in return, we're protecting ourselves and we're protecting our organizations. So just generally speaking, right, we're looking at young adults, more likely to use 2FA, right? That's something that they were introduced to as they, obviously came into the professional world, and it's something that they are probably using in most of their applications. They regularly update everything. I know that I do that as well. But less likely to change passwords, which again, like we said, with the replicating passwords, I'm also guilty of, right? I leave things to sit for a little bit of time, and that's probably not the best practice. And of course, a lot of the younger generations know what phishing is, how to identify it, and what the implications of that could be. On the flip side, right, when we're talking 50 plus, we're talking those who've been in the professional realm for a while. They do know that updating security software is important because again, they've obviously seen that progress as time has gone on. They probably use some different passwords or maybe a few different passwords, cycle them through their accounts, just again by nature of it. But in terms of the other side of that, they're less likely to have recovery information links. So it's going to be that whole, forgotten password, trying to reset that information process. Less likely to use password manager, so it's less secure, right? It's probably in a document somewhere or an email draft
Post-it note.
Post-it note, like something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So there's two sides to the coin, right? And there's always going to be different ways that you need to, at least teach these or have these individuals make sure they're covered, I guess, right? And being as secure as they possibly can be.
Totally.
Because again, they're the first line of attack, right? So
yeah. And we want a multi-layered approach, correct, Fred?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's where I'll bring NIST into this. Obviously, we're here talking about, SaaS backup and recovery, right? But that is your, last layer there, so to speak, right? So you could have, various security solutions in place for identity, for protection, to respond to these threats, right? But at the end of the day, when we come to an actual loss of data, right, there needs to be some type of a backup tool or some type of recovery procedure or process in place, right? Because again, that's the most important aspect of all of this, right? So eventually there's going to be a
Correct.
loss of some sort.
Yeah. Data loss happens, whether it's accidental, just deletion, just on the user side, or maliciously inside the organization. But are SaaS vendors responsible for our data? We give the example of an organization migrating from Exchange on-prem to the cloud. Your data is stored in Azure, but Microsoft doesn't back it up. They will store it, but if there is data loss, that is the end user's responsibility. So Microsoft is designed for easy access, or vendors like Microsoft. We just use that as an example. But is designed for easy access and availability of that data. However, it's not responsible for data loss due to user error, rogue employees, ransomware or malware, or a lack of security procedures on the end user side. This is our responsibility. And you may have heard of the shared responsibility model, but what it boils down to is the availability versus the backup and recovery. We often conflate high availability, which means when you try to log in that the service is there. If a server fails, there's another server to take over in their stead. And the availability has nothing to do with the accuracy or the integrity of the data within those systems, though. And that's why it's important to have a backup and restore. You might be asking, but what about my recycle bin or the vaults? Can't I find my deleted items in there? Yes, temporarily you can, for typically around 30 days. But the problem with that is typically after 277 days is when you realize that you've lost that data. And once it's gone, oof, that is hard to get back from Microsoft or Google or Salesforce alone. Here's an example of a now spanning customer. They originally, an employee at their organization originally clicked on a link and thousands of files were encrypted, and it took them weeks to recover. They had sync and share, but it didn't protect their data. And they realized that they couldn't rely on their SaaS vendors' native capabilities alone. So Fred, what about recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. So what about recovery is right? What if we are in this situation? What if we find ourselves with, the need to restore data, pull it out of backups, right? If we're not backing that data up, right, we're looking at, just as Kelly had just mentioned, right, a SaaS vendor's retention policy. That data isn't being backed up in an alternate location that's going to be lost in some form, right? And the same thing, I guess, that goes into the complication of it, right? If you don't have backups that are offering granular recovery, it's going to be a similar situation, which then goes right into the manual aspect of it, right? You're going to spend excessive amounts of time having no granular options of looking for this data that you're trying to recover that you haven't even backed up as it was anyway. You are in a very, very big mess that, of course, is going to cost a lot of money to remediate if the full remediation is available, right? Just going off of that 50-50 marker from before for the SaaS applications and SaaS data, right? I mean, you're going to be spending, and you could potentially be spending a lot of time and a lot of money to have absolutely no results, or not the results that you needed, right? So
Right.
do you have the time to wait for a response from Microsoft? Do you have the time and the capital to spend that, right? And in the granularity sense of it, if it's just a simple file or a simple spreadsheet or whatever it is, do you want to have to roll back entire users or entire sites or things like that, right? You want to
What if
grab
you
those
don't need
items.
to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And
exactly
there
right,
is a
Kelly.
cost,
Yep. Exactly. There is a cost to those things, right? Looking at a ransomware attack, right? If an organization has a very, a high level incident response, program or platform or whatever you want to call it in place, right? Then the likelihood of them having significant costs is going to go down, right? Organizations with plans like this in place, they're probably going to save about $250,000, $250,000 on, any breaches, right? In terms of the dev or security ops approach. And get into employee training, another $232,000, about another $250,000. Same thing with incident response planning and testing in the same realm, right? And then obviously, some machine learning, AI driven insights, spam filtering, all that good stuff. It's going to be in the, 200s as well, right? So looking
Yep.
at that, you can save yourself a lot of money by spending a little money to make sure that you have those tools in place. And then on the other side, if you don't have, compliance with, specific regulations within your niche, you're probably going to be spending over $200,000. And the same thing with your remote workforce. If you're not covering them, around 200 grand as well in costs in terms of data breaches and things like that. So there are a whole host of other bits that'll jump into, but that's just the general idea, right? If you protect yourself, you're going to save more money in a breach. If not, a lot of time and a lot of money that's going to go out the window there.
Have a plan.
Have a plan. Exactly.
And part of that plan can be a third-party SaaS backup, like Spanning. Spanning is a Kaseya company and is the leader in SaaS data protection, proven and trusted by more than 11,000 organizations to provide complete, automated, and priced right solutions that meet various rigorous requirements for listing on Microsoft App Source, Salesforce App Exchange, and Google Workspace Marketplace. Originally founded in 2010 in Austin, Texas. So we've been around for a while, and we know what we're doing, right?
Yes, we do. Of course, key features of Spanning, right? And for 365, Google Workspace and Salesforce, generally speaking, backup and restorability, right? Non-destructive restores, not overwriting data. That's obviously largely important, right? 365 side, we're backing up your SharePoint, your OneDrive, contacts, calendars, mails, of course, your Teams channels as well. And obviously in the OneDrive aspect of it, it's going to include your OneNote. Everything is automated and on demand. Like I mentioned, obviously granular restore is a really, really big or key part of, your backups and having that. And of course, Spanning is going to offer that as well. Cross-user restores. So if you need to, move data from one user who's maybe left the organization to somebody who's currently there, whatever the case may be, you have, of course, that ability of an admin as well. Again, SharePoint is a massive part of the 365, functionality, right? So a lot of us are in that. Backing that up is important. Reporting, course, your unlimited storage or unlimited retention, but having the option to set specific retention policies. Again, we understand, verticals and niches have that compliance and will of course accommodate that. And of course, we could layer some security into that as well, right? Kaseya has a host of security tools. We have some integrations with them. We have some extensions. Our dark web, a credential monitoring tool does have an extension within Spanning where you'll see a notification for any login who's been exposed. So just goes into that, that same piece there, right? The recovery is massively important, but it's also a good part of your security there too. So
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah. And we've used that dark web monitoring tool, right, Fred? And that's
Yeah.
Scary to
Yeah.
see.
It is a little, it's
what
a
all is
little
out
freaky
there.
to see. And it's also a little freaky to see the same people who have their credentials exposed over and over again, right? So we know
Yes.
who, in that case, who to focus on and who to have those conversations with to make sure that's something that doesn't continue to reoccur there, right? So generally speaking, right, with a SaaS backup solution in place, and just on the flip side, looking at SaaS data loss, we want to close the protection gap. Obviously the SaaS vendors aren't accounting for our data, right? Just like Kelly had mentioned before, we want to close that gap. We want to make sure that we are being responsible in accounting for our data, making sure that all those those things are in place. Of course, again, in turn, reducing the cost of recovery. A couple of slides ago, we mentioned how all of those things are going to, how much they're going to cost if you don't have a plan in place. Obviously, these tools are parts of that plan, right? And then any of you guys who need to meet compliance obligations. That is a massively important piece of this as well, and something that you should be doing. Now, Spanning, going into the security aspect of it, just built into the tool itself, right? It's obviously what we're talking about here. We do support MFA and 2FA, of course, OAuth 2.0 and things of that nature. Why is that massively important? API level access, reducing the need for another security login or a service login or something like that. you know, those things are just extra little cogs in the web here that we want to make sure that we're, not providing an opportunity or a chance for anybody to break in here. Of course, we encrypt the data in transit and at rest. Using 256-bit AES encryption. You guys can bring self-managed keys if you'd like to. That's totally optional, but of course, it's something we offer on our side here as well. And then, of course, single sign-on for UniView if you're using our Unitrends backup products as well. Gives you a portal to manage any of your other backups with us here as well. So, all right, jump into the next slide. Similar to what we had just discussed, right? Obviously, the dark web credential monitoring is a great piece to have within your SaaS backup tool. Of course, all the OAuth, the 2FA or the MFA, right? We want to make sure that we're utilizing the same logins and security measures that we're using for our standard admin platform portal and so forth. A big key that we haven't tremendously discussed here today is actually going to be the phishing defense and awareness training. Yes, we've thrown it in here in the conversation, but having a full-on tool that does do that for you guys is going to be something that's tremendously important as well, right? You can run custom scripts, you can run custom I guess projects, we'll call it, right? To really hit those individuals that need the training or that need that I guess refresher or reminder of those security standards.
Great.
All righty. So looking at a situation where we are hyper focused on our end users or our employees, right? With trainings, with providing AI learning insights, whether it's through those security trainings or with a phishing platform and program, right? That's a big piece of this as well, right? We'll save $500,000 just with those two pieces of the tool. Obviously, we mentioned the dev and security ops and all of those types of things, right? We're looking at $500,000 just on training your employees and your end users. Again, all fully automated. If you set it up that way, it just makes sense, right? Do that now so that when we get down the road, if something like this were to occur, you guys are you're generally protected and it's not going to hurt the wallet too hard.
And with all of this, with Spanning, you can recover with confidence. Spanning offers backup solutions for some of the most frequent SaaS vendors in the industry, such as Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, or Salesforce. So no matter where your data is stored and used every day to operate your business, you know that you can be protected and have the option to restore your data when it is lost. And as we talked about the NIST framework before, a layered defense is the best you can do for your business. So whether that's using phishing defense and dark web monitoring for security purposes, we integrate also with RMM solutions within the Kaseya stack and utilizing the 2FA and having password management tools such as IT Glue is very beneficial, or using secure collaborative tools such as Data Workplace in combination with a backup for your data. We have what you need with that layered approach. And that is all we have for you today. I want to thank you for your time and attention. And I see Jade has rejoined us.
Hi.
And I will let you take the lead.
Oh, Kylie, Fred, that was incredible. What a way to kick us off. And so many amazing insights shared, especially the stark reality of cyber attack space right now. Some of those statistics, real jaw droppers, and poor Fred having to be the case study of what not to do. But I was right there with you in spirit, Fred.
That's all right.
Absolute victim of some of those.
I know I'm not the only one. I'm just not afraid to say
it. Well, as the old saying goes, people are our biggest weakness. We have got time for some questions for you both. So there is still time for those in the audience, if something piques your interest, if you want to find out more, do drop your questions in the chat. We can bring you up on stage, or if you'd rather not join us, you're welcome to tap your question in the chat and we can ask it for you. We'd love to hear from you about what was interesting and how it relates to your own situation. I'd love to start, please, Kelly and Fred, by asking you, from what you see out in the real world, what are perhaps some of the lower hanging fruit threat actors are taking advantage of, that organizations like the one we've got on the showcase today could take advantage of to help better protect themselves when it comes to AI-powered security threats? What are some of the quick wins?
You start off, Kelly?
Happy to take. Yeah, of course. Honestly, the first dollar spent in any security strategy, I always say, should be to have a backup. But beyond that, once you do have your data backed up in a third-party application, I would recommend that security and awareness training, because like you said, Jade, we are our own biggest weakness, but we can be our own biggest offense as well, or defense, in preventing these types of attacks like phishing or vishing, and ransomware entering our environment within our organization. So having a plan to train and educate and enable your own employees within your organization is going to make a drastic difference. And Fred shared the numbers. There is a significant benefit to investing in those types of solutions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like what you had said there, Kelly, about actually you had corrected yourself with the offensive. I believe that the offensive would be the security trainings, right? And putting that knowledge and education in front of your employees and your end users in any organization, right? Because again, they're going to be that front, right? That those bad actors are going to attack. And the more that we have one of those defense capabilities, right, just internally in our organization, but the more education that we have for our end users is really an offensive, right? They're going to be able to push back. They're going to be able to know and recognize when, hey, I might be under a little bit of a threat here. This is probably something that I shouldn't be interacting with. So that is just like Kelly had said, right? Backup is massively important, because we don't have backup, no matter what we have for security, we're going to find ourselves in the mud, right? So you get past that, right? And we kind of clear that up, right? Training and having that awareness to everybody within any internal organization is I think of tremendous importance, equally as important to security operations and anything like that.
Okay, crystal clear. Thank you both. You mentioned phishing and vishing just there. And when we do look at kind of AI in the inbox, so to speak, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword, can't it? Because, email providers love to tout about how great AI is at protecting inboxes and making you more efficient. But then on the other side, AI is that increasing weapon when it comes to threat actors being able to use email phishing. So who is winning on this battle? Is it the email providers, or is it these bad actors that are able to get these phishing emails into our accounts?
Yeah, that's the great question, right? That's I guess the end all be all question, right? Is who is winning that battle, right? Because in turn was, as the protectors or as the solution providers, we're utilizing that AI for good, right? And on the flip side, they're using it, not for good, right? And it's really just AI working against itself, and that is kind of a scary thought as it is, just in general. But the more that, again, we are, we're technically, let's just say we're partnering with AI, in the human effect or as the individual effect, then we're going to be able to, to turn that away or turn that down more so, right? Via all those trainings and all those things. So the more that we incorporate the AI in our, daily usage in our daily life with, situations like this, and having the, the interactive aspect of it too, that's really how we're going to be able to do that.
I have to agree with Fred. Just kind of it's going to be a back and forth, as long as it's going to continue to be used within organizations and against organizations. It's going to be a little bit of a chase back and forth between the two.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a little dance that we have to learn the steps
a little dance we're going to have to do,
Yeah, and are actively still learning those steps as we go. And those, bad actors, they're getting better and better at their choreography. The same, I guess, could be said for all these new tools and technologies coming in. We're kind of promised sky high expectations from all these companies who, say that they can support IT professionals in their day to day. Have you got any advice on being able to kind of cut through that noise and what organizations should be looking for when it comes to tech partners?
I think at least with Kaseya, what we have continued to do, maybe not necessarily AI and improving efficiencies there. We do use that on my side of the business and the marketing side, just whether it's creating email campaigns and kind of checking our work and making sure that it sounds appropriate for the correct audience. At least on the IT side, I would say efficiencies in integrations. That's where you're going to find those game-changing, day-changing, life-changing moments, is when your software is communicating with one another and you have fewer logins, you have fewer screens open, fewer tabs open in your browser to do the things that you need to do. And that's one thing I think Kaseya has done a great job of, is integrating those integrations across all the products that we have in our platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's actually a perfect segue for a question that was just asked as well, actually, by Alex. Kelly, you're mentioning the the integrations, right, and layering these tools together. Alex is saying how obviously everything these days seems to be AI. How mature are solutions in terms of security for navigating and managing these kinds of attacks, right? Obviously, the idea is great, but how much value is actually being brought to the table here? That is I would, in my suggestion, reading that, Alex, I had actually just been thinking what Kelly was saying. Obviously layering these tools on top of each other, having tools that are AI based, right? Having the training tools and all of those things in place with, your backup right at the end of the line there. But having all of those tools in place, having those tools that are integrating with each other, right, communicating with each other, is going to be the way that we defend ourselves against this, right? And that's where the value is going to be, right? You may not see the value in one thing, right, or one specific item, but you may see the value, and you probably will see the value in an anti-phishing tool that is AI based, right? It's recognizing the changes in behavioral patterns and things like that, whether it's coming from an internal email address or an external email address, right? Having that coupled with your security trainings and various different detection solutions and things like that. That's where the value is going to be driven from, right? That's where we're going to see that because it's providing the result of not being compromised, right? And that's, I think, where that question will best be answered for you in an application sort of sense.
Okay, some real eye-opening stuff. Thank you both so much. One more question, and then we're going to move on to the next session in the showcase. We don't have a crystal ball, sadly, do we? But how do you see AI supporting organizations to defend against attacks as we look ahead? Obviously, the outside, cyber criminals are always one step ahead. What do you see as the propensity of AI?
I see collaboration across organizations. The more people that we can share ideas across organization lines and be effective in those conversations and be kind of honest, as honest as we can be without giving away too much information, I think is going to be honestly the best bet at continuing to evolve AI for the better and fighting those threat actors who are getting more and more advanced with their types of attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think control and regulation is a big aspect of it as well, right? But the collaboration for the positive side or for the good or for the defenses against those who don't really care about the regulations and the rules and control or anything like that, right? Because that's just how those individuals operate as it is, no matter what business they're in, right? So that's what we, I think would be just like Kelly had said, right? It's going to be our best bet in in the growth and continuance of utilizing AI in all facets for sure. That collaboration is going to be a big piece.
Yeah, undoubtedly. We need to kind of look beyond our own four walls, don't we? To even to competitors to be able to fight the good fight as one.
Yeah.
So insightful. Thank you, Kelly and Fred, so much. Some amazing thoughts to get us going as we move into the next session of the showcase. Sadly, we are going to be saying goodbye to Fred, but I know you'll be here in the background with us. Thank you so much, Fred, for bringing all of this to light for us. But we are moving into our panel discussion where we will be hearing from two additional thought leaders as well as Kelly on artificial intelligence, a very real threat or a very rewarding opportunity. And what a panel we have. Joining Kelly are the wonderful William Emmett, Head of Information Security Risk Management at Freshfields, as well as Rob Plummer, who's the IT Director and Information Security Leader over at Fletcher's Group. William and Rob are going to join us up on stage now. Hello to you both. How are you?
Hi there.
Afternoon.
Afternoon. Good to see you, Rob. Just hoping. There we go. We've got you all. Lovely to see you. Let's do some quick intros. William, tell us a bit about you and your role.
Thank you. I'm Head of Information Security Risk Management at Freshfields. I've been with Freshfields now for 15 years, 8 of those years in the security team. And AI, I think, amongst everyone, is the hot topic of the day.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there, William. I'm looking forward to drawing on that wealth of experience you've got there. Rob, over to you. Let's hear more about you.
Afternoon, Jade. I'm similar to William. I've been in the IT world for 20 plus years as an IT and security leader. Currently operating in the legal sector, but spent a lot of my previous time in the energy sector with smart metering. So it's again AI, very hot topic in both the security and the innovation sectors. So good to be here to discuss.
Oh, good to have you both here and joining the wonderful Kelly for this section. Right, we have got a ton of questions here for you once again to our lovely audience. Any questions you've got for William, Rob or Kelly, do drop them into us. We will be posing those towards the end. For now though, I guess one advantage here is that William, Rob, you're currently both in the same industry within law. So you might have some similar perspectives to offer. I'd love to start by asking you, as you sort of sit here today, what's the biggest challenge you're facing when it comes to securing against cyber threats in this AI accelerated world? Rob, are you able to kick us off?
I think simply down is the volume and the change. I think what AI has done is it's sped up the risks, sped up the threats. There's too many to obviously to discuss. We've got malware, evasion techniques, phishing. We mentioned social engineering, impersonation, reverse engineering, bypassing tools. We can carry on going. There are lots of different tools, and don't get me wrong, they were all available prior to AI. All these tools were a threat there. What's happened is the quality of the threat has increased. And what we're trying to do now is try and match that quality of threat with an improved defense. Unfortunately, a lot of the defense tools haven't changed too much. There's obviously difference in signature-based AV, behavioral-based detection. We've increased from an AV to an EDR. There's different things we put in there, but they are just layers of that onion in the defense mechanism of we need to capture it somewhere along that line. So I think if you ask me what's the biggest thing that sort of keeps me up is just the volume of threats out there and the evolving change that happens.
That's interesting. And keeping up with what is beyond your control. William, would you agree that kind of balancing the quantity of threats with the technology that's currently available to you? What do you see as the biggest challenges?
For me, there's a couple of different areas because I know there was a question just about kind of everything seems to be AI at the moment. Most industries have been using AI in some of its capacity for well over a decade. But one of the changes that I've seen, certainly with things like ChatGPT, is that it's suddenly made it, or the term AI, consumable. And I think that's what's driving some of the adoption of the term AI, which is actually introducing some interesting areas for us because we're getting different different areas that we need to consider, certainly when it comes to client expectations about how we're using AI platforms. So this generic term is a bit of a challenge for us, because actually I think the world's probably more interested in generative AI and the dangers that it can actually kind of pose for us. The other area for me is that actually now, while we're kind of considering whether or not AI is going to be an enhancement for areas like fishing, actually fishing still remains quite successful in quite basic forms. And there's, I'm not sure we're at that tipping point yet where it's beneficial or there's an advantage for attackers to have to adopt AI to actually increase the success of what they're able to achieve with some still a very basic technique. So those are still the kind of areas that we're looking at. And I think, speaking to Kelly's point as well, the actual basics of what most organizations need to be doing will provide you with a surprising amount of protection against more advanced capabilities. Your ability to recover is obviously a significant one. Using some of the areas for things like anomaly detection, again, that's quite an established kind of practice now. So there are platforms that are out there that actually, if people are doing the basics, will help. Not having overly permissive systems. It's kind of really dealing with the consequences of a potential successful, if we take phishing as an example, of what can happen in the result of a successful attack. So I can certainly see there will be advantages that will come about. It's a question really of that delta between where we'll actually see wholly AI based attacks as opposed to some of the areas that attackers prefer to use currently.
That's an interesting perspective. Kelly, do you care to weigh in on that? And I also really like how William was saying about, phishing in basic forms is still a very prevalent attack. Is that something that you're seeing from the industry, Kelly?
It is. However, the way that AI is being used in those types of attacks is to increase speed and efficiency. So oftentimes what hackers are doing with utilizing the AI, maybe they're not using AI to generate the message that is being sent to their users necessarily, but they are using AI to monitor not only our patterns with our passwords and credentials and things like that, it's also monitoring our behavior online. So that could be monitoring which sites that we're frequenting, or if we're on Facebook or social media, posts that we're liking, things of that nature. And then they're using that information to kind of tailor those types of attacks. We've seen it less so in the organization setting and more so on like the personal attacks, whether that's via text or email, saying maybe it's your phone carrier and you're late on a payment. But William is correct. They're just kind of reusing those basics of creating an emotional response for us to react. And us being human, we kind of are our own worst enemies, and with our kind of instant gratification lifestyle now, we are quick to respond in those emotional moments instead of taking a step back and looking at the message. Are there spelling errors? Does the email sender actually look legitimate? Do the links match up to what they are actually saying this is coming from? Those types of normal moments where you just want to check your own self in whether or not you should react. But yes, I would say they're kind of replaying the greatest hits as far as just simplicity works in the phishing attack world.
And it's a really great point. I mean, we've covered kind of training and awareness. Some of the areas that AI will present some challenges is actually potentially removing some of those checkpoints that we will educate our users on, right? So the kind of grammar, and now the potential of kind of instant translation. Predominantly, most of what we see is kind of in English, but actually that means you can leverage a whole suite now of kind of native languages when you're actually launching your campaign. So again, those bits will become will remove some of the areas that help users identify phishing emails. But again, as Kelly pointed out, we're still talking about the basics of, we still need to remind people just to do the checks, like look at the email that's being sent. Were you actually expecting it? And those points actually now, probably a lot of what we get now spam actually is labeled as phishing. But we've got to a point now, which is kind of good for us at the moment, where we have a regular user interaction now, people escalating areas that they're concerned about. So it's really just about, if you're at all suspicious, escalate it to your technical teams, let them take a look. So again, it's those basics.
I agree, William. I think, like I said, the visibility, the learning. I think what ChatGPT specifically and the generative AI is just opened it for further reach. So what you tend to get now is I'm not going to say the old script kiddies term, but fundamentally more people can do more damage. It's making it easy for people, I think, is the easiest point.
Yep.
I'm so glad you guys touched on this. You're making my job so easy. Because yes, it's clear, you know, social engineering techniques with AI in the frame are becoming so much more sophisticated. Are you able to shed any light on how you're counteracting this in your own organizations, or even if it's your own experience of it? Do you want to kick us off, William?
Yeah, sure. So for us, education is a big kind of factor in what we're trying to do with the organization. Actually trying to, I guess, pop the AI bubble, and actually give people some education about the components of AI. So when they're looking at kind of potential solutions or reading articles about it, they've got a good grounding on the potential risks on a number of different platforms. The other areas that we try to ensure that any kind of user education is done on a frequent basis. And that is always a challenge, to try and keep that kind of interesting enough to keep people engaged to keep coming back. And I think kind of the wider bit, whenever we get kind of incidents that we see are particularly interesting, we will feed that back into our user education. The other area that's super useful is being able to leverage your I guess kind of network industries, if you've got them, networks within your industries, so that you can actually, if you do see something that looks particularly interesting, you've got an opportunity to pass it to your peer group, so they can also introduce that into their organisation. So that way they don't potentially get exposed, or they can learn from our learnings, and vice versa.
Great. So all about the education piece there. Rob, how about you? Anything to add on how to counteract these more sophisticated phishing techniques?
No, I think I pretty much agree with what William said. Then it's evolving your education based on the types of techniques. Techniques change, your education needs to change. So it's an ever-changing workflow of teaching users what the current threat is, what the manipulation is, how it's being actioned. Is it, let's say, phishing, quishing, and every other one that's going on at the moment in time. So it's just making sure, not just from a business perspective, but a personal perspective, they're taught what the obvious are, how to protect themselves, not just the business, not just the data, but the personal lifestyle of their kids, what they can or can't. Well, I'm not going to say can or can't do, that's their choice. What they should or shouldn't do. It's just making sure that it's not just business driven, it's personal. End of the day, I think the old adage is connected equal hacked, or connected equal risk. It's probably the better term, but everyone's connected, no matter where you are. You will have something connected to the internet, and it will pose a risk.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Kelly, do you agree that the emphasis should largely be on the engagement piece when it comes education piece, sorry, when it comes to this?
I do. Here at Kaseya, we are an IT software company, and we sell to organizations like Williams and Frogs. So at Kaseya, I like to say we drink our own champagne, and we utilize those tools like education and training for phishing awareness, or AI generative email monitoring to look for those out of the norm emails that you might be getting, and have a banner across your screen saying, is this a trusted source? Would you like to have it checked by one of our IT and security folks, or do you want to go through with reading this message? I think, like we talked about earlier with Fred, people can either be our greatest strength or our greatest weakness within the organization. And I liked what William had mentioned about peer groups, and talking about what's going on and maybe things that you might have been hit with, whether it's a specific type of phishing campaign or vishing campaign, and having an open conversation of how did you react? What was it successful? Was your reactions successful? And then with Rob, I agree as well with keeping it. Not only is it about your organization and the reputation of your organization, let's say if your customers' information is hacked and leaked. But like we talked about earlier as well, it's also your employees' information that hackers are after, and making it more personal, that this is your responsibility, not only for our customers and the people that we serve, but for your own safety and security as well. And transferring those skills into their personal lives.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.
Just,
William, take it away.
now, I've just seen there's a question, there was two questions that's come up, but one in particular, more of a useful information point. And it is a great point about actually what organizations can be doing in this space, which is around monitoring what your business is doing with these capabilities. We're obviously talking about kind of attackers coming in, but threats do exist in how these technologies are applied, and actually having a good grounding about how the organization should be using these platforms is a big one. And at the moment, because of the focus on AI, there's obviously a lot of desire to be able to kind of maximize and use these platforms. So there's a huge benefit in making sure you've got a good view from a security perspective of where these tools are being used, so that you can kind of minimize any potential of things like kind of data entering into some of these models without you knowing about it. The second question I've seen on there around kind of chatbots, I've not seen any.
Yeah. William, sorry to interrupt you there. Siv's actually going to pop up and say hello to us. Siv, we're welcoming you to the stage. Come and join the party. And I see you had a question around chatbots for our panel. There they are. Hey, Siv, can you hear me okay?
Sorry, I was on mute there. Apologies. Typical.
No worries. It's all part of it. Welcome, Siv. Your question, please.
Sure. So yeah, firstly, apologies. I'm not as smartly dressed as the rest of you guys, so I do apologize. Yeah, my question was around sort of the use of chatbots. So obviously, I work for Fortnum and Mason, so we're very heavily on sales and trying to drive our web traffic and sales on it. So making use of things like customer service chatbots or chatbots for to drive sales or to help promote it. But I was just wondering, in your experience, have you ever seen any sort of breaches on there, things that we should be looking out for, threats that may occur via people trying to attack the chatbot essentially?
That is a great question, Siv. I unfortunately don't have any specific statistics around that in the industry. However, I could see that would be of concern, just given that it's an AI bot typically doing those types of services. William, Rob, have you heard of anything?
I think from my perspective, Siv, I've used chatbots, both AI orientated and user orientated. Outside of misinformation and information being collected from the bot, that's probably the only risk we've ever had based on information being uploaded through the bot rather than the actual bot itself or somebody attacking the bot. We have had it before. Well, I personally have had it before where somebody's been attacking the site the bot's on, but it wasn't bot orientated based on trying to disrupt the actual connection to the bot. I've never seen or heard of a particular bot being hijacked or manipulated in any way. I'm not sure about you, William.
No, much the same. I've not seen or heard of any examples to date that would be an exploit for the chatbot.
But I like the way your mind works and how you're thinking. I would have never thought about that.
I've worked in the
question.
IT space before anyway, so I'm working transformation now, but I come from an IT background. So again, just thinking outside the box of attacks and how things can occur. Just trying to see if anybody else has ever thought of anything or seen anything like that.
Interesting. Well, watch this space. There's plenty of new ways that people are trying to get into our fortresses. Thank you so much, Siv. Thanks for coming up and joining us. Great to see you. And to everyone else in the audience, we have still got time for your questions, so do get those into us as and when you wish. If anything interesting to you, have you tried any of the techniques we've spoken about? Would you like to pick the brains of one of our panelists? Do let us know. For now, though, in your opinion, guys, William, Kelly, Rob, what should IT and security leaders be looking to prioritize when it comes to minimizing the impact of cyber attacks on the enterprise? It's huge, it's a big question, but I'd love to know sort of one or two top priorities. Kelly, your thoughts?
Sure. So I'm no IT or security strategy expert. However, IBM has found key factors that are kind of a table stake, if you will, for protecting your organization. And just kind of bare minimum MFA. It's free. You should utilize it with any and all platforms. I would recommend also looking at the NIST cybersecurity framework as a starting point, or I know Australia Essential 8. That can give you just like a comprehensive look at how you can improve your security posturing within your business, as well as it can go into budgets and kind of where you can invest your time and money. Employee training is always going to be a good investment. We have what we call Bullfish ID within Kaseya, and it forces people who fail the phishing test by sending them a fake phishing email. And if you click on it, you are forced to do a series of trainings on phishing and the risks of that. As well as just, we are here for backup and disaster recovery. It's extremely important to have a point of recovery if and when. It's not a matter of if anymore, it's when you are hit with an attack. So that's my 2 cents. I'd love to hear what our other experts have to say, or our true experts.
I'll jump in next if you want, Jade. I think I'm gonna go backwards first. So recovery, absolutely. You can't operate without a recovery plan, without the ability to recover, because something will happen. There's not an if, like I say, it's more likely a when. The case is how bad is it and what you need to recover. However, I'm going to then reverse it, because obviously the basics of security are simple these days. It's, like say, stop somebody getting in, the threat actors, put 2FA in there. However, you'd be amazed how many businesses don't understand the data, don't understand the risk. So I'm going to go back to that level and sort of say, understand your asset, and your asset being a person, being your data, understand where it is and understand the priority of that asset. So somebody once asked me, if you went into a new business and you only had a set amount of money, where would you focus your attention to security? And that's probably the easiest, that's probably the biggest question you can get asked, because there's that much money you could spend on security, you could lose it. So I think fundamentally understand your biggest asset, understand your biggest risk, and then secure that. That's the first and foremost, because everything else can fail and you can try and recover it, but making sure that the biggest pain is covered first is probably the focal point of any sort of security person.
Yeah, absolutely. Identify the crown jewels and put them first. William, how about you? What's your thoughts?
I think all fantastic points. The areas I'd add on top of that is kind of really having a look at your estate. Like, how are you overly permissive? What can you actually do with the credentials that you've got? How do you ring fence those areas so that in the event of, say, a credential compromise, how far is that? How far is that going to go? If you have your privileged accounts, what can actually do can only operate within a confined environment. So is only via kind of remote access to, again, just limit the opportunities for exploitation. How do you actually protect your credentials? Yeah, the 2FA, absolutely, that is fantastic. But there's loads of opportunities now for doing things to have an extra there, things like conditional access. So going beyond slightly just the authentication, but actually getting some conditions that actually say this doesn't feel right at all, so I'm going to cut this off. Having those areas where you can leverage automation, if you can get comfortable with that, so that if you do start seeing some activity that is kind of out of step for what looks like a normal user activity, can you actually close that off? Do you have an opportunity to close it out early? And then, as I said, yeah, really having a view, as we've covered already, on that ability to recover. If we just take phishing, 9 times out of 10, there's kind of 3 main areas you're going to look at: credential compromise, some kind of initiation of software or malware download, or it's just to establish contacts. And that's what we've got to kind of remember. Sometimes there's a lot of attacks out there. It's just about establishing a contact and trying to leverage that trust. It may not be the biggest kind of a nuisance in the world, but I'm sure many of us on this call will have stories of hearing people going off to get vouchers that can suddenly be put across on an email and become untraceable. So there's a ton of good ideas that, certainly from Kelly and Robin, should give people more than enough opportunity to get some of those areas covered.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. We've spoken a lot about threats, attacks, security. Can we just talk briefly about the dreaded compliance, regulations, liability insurance, obviously both in law firms? So yes, it's high up on the list. And I think it was you, Rob, that previously worked in finance as well. So you're accustomed to this being a priority. How are you finding that balance between pushing the boundaries of cybersecurity while not kind of getting into muddy waters when it comes to regulation, and cyber liability insurance? Rob, what are your thoughts?
It's a mixed bag, and I think coming from different sectors, every sector deals with it slightly differently. I think what we need to do better in the future is have a better collaboration with both sort of the governance, compliance, regulators. A lot of the rules and regulations are made without understanding business, in my eyes. So they're more of a dictatorship in some instances rather than a set understanding of plans. So I think there's lots to be done to improve it. I think it's there for a reason, absolutely is, and even from a compliance head, it's correct. It's there. It's the rules are set. Sometimes the rules you look at and go, from a security perspective and a cybersecurity perspective, you question why there are certain rules in there and not others. However, it is what it is. We do have to, certainly from a legal perspective and in the other sectors, we do have to abide by these rules. We do have to set these rules, even when it comes to cyber insurance, for example. You've got to follow certain criteria. You've got to be sort of following the basics of cybersecurity. The SRA, again, they advise you do X amount in this. So there's different regulators who demand different things. Usually, the baseline is the same. The baseline of cybersecurity in most instances, one might be higher than the other, but the general baseline is based off your best practice of NIST, of your best practice of ISO 27001, especially for risk management, risk governance, in which case it's just a case of how much you need to spend to secure. And I think there's a big difference in the legal sector and SME sector to understand how much they want to invest in cybersecurity to how much they need to be abided by regulators. Obviously, there's technology, there's funding, there's staffing, there's software. So it's a moving target because obviously every year the regulators potentially change what they want to regulate as well. So you just got to try and keep on top of that, certainly from a cyber perspective. But again, if you use common sense, standard best practice of cybersecurity, you should already be good enough to meet the regulations that come out.
More of a waltz in the world flamenco we were talking about earlier, Kelly, when it comes to doing the dance with the threat actors. And William, your perspective here on the compliance and regulation side of things.
Yeah, sure. Going back to a point I made at the beginning, I think we're in this kind of position at the moment where AI has become a broad sweeping term, and there are obviously different kind of risks and that we need to be aware of the different components that you might potentially be using. I believe a lot of the focus for the regulators at the moment is on generative because of the speed that is being put in consumers' hands. We've already seen integrations across most major platforms. I'd be surprised if there's people on this call that haven't used ChatGPT just to have a bit of a play. And that's probably where it gets a little bit more dangerous. So ensuring that you've got clear guidance for your organisation about how to interact with some of these tools, for me, is one of those steps. But also having a clear route. If you've got people in your organisation that want to be able to explore these tools, how do they actually kind of kick that off and how they do it safely? So those are the bits for me of how we're trying to navigate some of the areas when it comes to things like compliance. And actually just awaiting to see what comes out of some of the output from some of the regulatory guidance that will be forthcoming. So we've got the AI Act for the EU, but I suspect it will be much the same as things like GDPR and the current movement of data protection compliance that we're seeing across the globe. Hopefully, it will all be along a similar tone, and it won't be too individualized. So that we don't have the global challenge as well.
Absolutely. At the minute, it's sort of up to the organisation to strike their jurisdiction. So I imagine, fingers crossed, it'll be along similar lines. We have had a question in from an anonymous attendee, whoever you are, thank you so much, who asks around, with cyber threats becoming more sophisticated, do you see a day when cyber insurance comes with a minimum prereq around having an accreditation like Cyber Essentials Plus or ISO? Sorry, forgive me, I'm not up on these. 207001. Hopefully that means a bit more to you than me.
I had a actually good, interesting conversation with a cyber insurer actually last week, and a very similar question got raised then because if you talk to a lot of IT people, not in the legal sector specifically, but in the wider sector, a lot of people are actually pulling away from actually buying cyber insurance because it's too expensive. And actually investing that cyber insurance money in defense techniques or defense software, because they are advising the small print of the cyber insurance by the time you do get hacked is not worth the time or effort to try and recover it back, because it can take years to recover the money lost back. And during that time, if you're a small business, you're probably shut down because you can't wait years to try and get your money back in the event of an attack. So I'm not going to say there will come a time. I think cyber insurance is changing, from what I understand, based on the appetite. And there are a couple of individual companies now coming out who are prioritising and doing nothing but cyber insurance, is my understanding. So they're focusing their attendees and everything around the cyber insurance world. So I think they always expect a minimum standard. And if you don't hit their minimum standard, there's obviously an overcharge, the same as any insurance. Will there come a time? I don't think there will, because fundamentally the bigger risk, the bigger payout. It is fundamentally what it is. And so obviously if there's more risk at your business, they're going to charge you more to get it. So if you don't meet standards, you just expect a bigger fund at the start of it.
Lots of agreement there from William and Thanks for shedding light on that, Rob. An interesting that conversation happened at such an opportune moment for you to answer this question. We have someone else coming up to join us. Please welcome Alex. He has a question for all of you. So we're just going to wait for him to pop up and hear a little bit more about him. Hi, Alex. Tell us about your role and what organisation you're
Hi
at.
guys, thank you for having me. So I work for a company called Currency Fair. We're a financial technology company. And I suppose we deal with all the privileged information day in, day out. So I suppose, before I ask the question, I think William, I think you've raised a very important kind of aspect of awareness, and anybody can be exposed to an incident. Because I remember we had 2 years ago, we had a senior engineer actually mailing me at one point saying, "Hey, listen, do you think this is phishing?" Turned out that he got an email from our CEO. First, he got asked, "Hey, listen, are there any convenience shops around?" Then he provided information. He exchanged 4 emails until the CEO, asked him to buy him some Steam vouchers, right? And at that point, he was like, "This sounds quite funny. I'm going to ask someone else." So I suppose, first thing before I ask the question, right, is the awareness. And I call it nagging. So everybody has to be reminded every 3 months about the risks, and and just spread awareness, right? But so the question for me here is, guys, so I suppose there was an incident, I think, in the US where the engineer was trying to improve his code, which is great, but I think he just copied it, pasted it into ChatGPT, and said, like, find the issues, right? Great, he got the code fixed. The problem is someone else then managed to get access to that code from somewhere else in the world. So Chinese walls are great, but then the question for me, I suppose, is, right, does it impact the functionality of the AI chatbot? Because at some point, then it's not going to be using the global model; it's going to be using the local model. Therefore, machine learning kind of probably knocks on the doors, right? But the question is how usable it's going to be, and then will it slow down the adoption, I suppose, because then it's not going to be as accurate as it would be when you had millions of users using it daily versus 100, 200 users using it in a kind of restricted kind of approach. So that's me. Thank you.
Yeah, do you want to take this one, William? You look like you had an answer ready to roll.
Yeah, sure. We are already seeing, I think, that mix of providers in this space wanting to actually make this work for companies. So we're already seeing an ability to take effectively the base models, which will still be informed by those free interactions, and then you can effectively bring them within your own environment. So that's where I think we'll probably see more of, I guess, the compliance angle solutions, being able to cover that concern that actually the data that the model's using stays within your environment, doesn't go anywhere, and doesn't actually go back to the provider. Whether or not that'll ultimately mean that you'll be at a slight disadvantage, I think it'll really depend on how the model continues to be updated, certainly when it comes to generative. But there are, I think, a lot of exciting opportunities that will potentially come with this. It's about just finding the right way to navigate those for your users. But it's also super difficult, right? Because you've got Bing already has chat integrated into it. It's suddenly very easy, and actually you just click on a tab and then suddenly you're in a world of putting in kind of queries. So that education piece, again, kind of comes back about what people are doing, having awareness of the potential ramifications, and then you effectively identifying your own user cases to see whether or not you need to pursue a more ring-fenced version of or deployment.
Excellent. Thank you, William. Alex, thanks so much for coming up to join us and for your question. And thank you so much to all of you for today. We're just about out of time. William, Rob, you have been fantastic panelists. Thank you for your candor and for sharing your journeys and thoughts with us. And Kelly, thank you so much to you for being our wonderful keynote and host within the panel. It's been fantastic. Thank you to the whole team at Spanning for making today possible. Just before we wrap, Kelly, any final thoughts for the team here?
Oh, I had a great time chatting with you all. Great conversation, and I love meeting with professionals in the industry and learning from you and hearing kind of what you're going through within your organizations and knowing that no one is alone in the struggle when it comes to cybersecurity.
Absolutely. This has been a wonderful therapy session to let it all out. I hope you agree. Thank you so much for all of your time today. It's been a pleasure to spend this 90 minutes with you. Really appreciate your candor and openness for making today an incredible event. Thank you for all your questions. Our team at Synergy will be in touch with you in the coming days to get feedback and provide any further information you would like, and we can connect you up to have any conversations you'd like to continue. For me, though, it is goodbye. Thank you so much from all of the team here at Spanning and Synergy. Have a great rest of your day. See you back here soon. Goodbye.